Your Excellency Choi Jong-kun, First Vice Minister of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea. Your Excellency Rodolfo Sabonje, Secretary General of the Association of Caribbean States, representatives of member states of the Caribbean community, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that we are gathered today for the 10th High-Level Forum on the Republic of Korea Caribbean Partnership is indicative of the strength of the relations between CARICOM and the Republic of Korea. Regrettably, unlike the previous 9 fora, we cannot be together in person, but the new normal of virtual meetings forced upon us by the COVID-19 pandemic still allows us to conduct our business effectively and efficiently. Since the World Health Organization announced the COVID-19 outbreak as a global pandemic on the 11th of March 2020, it has quickly evolved into one of the greatest threats to human society and the second worst pandemic of all time. Notwithstanding, the Caribbean community, CARICOM, has been working tirelessly and collectively to ensure the safety of its people and protect our economies from its onslaught. A CARICOM-wide public health approach was adopted from the very outbreak of the virus, even before a pandemic was declared. Early successes in controlling the spread of COVID-19 required swift activation of the regional response and arriving at that delicate balance of ensuring the health and safety of the citizens of the community on the one hand, while facilitating economic activities on the other. This has not been an easy balancing act. Following an emergency meeting of our health ministers in February, a working group was established to prepare a regional protocol which would define a standard response by member states to address the threats posed by COVID-19. The heads of government then met in special emergency session on the 1st of March and agreed to the protocol. As a result, we have been relatively successful in managing the health aspects of the pandemic with less than 1,000 deaths across our 15 member states and 5 associate members. The Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPHA, our lead institution in the sector, has served us well with support from the University of the West Indies, the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, the Regional Security System, the CARICOM Implementation Agency for Crime and Security, and health officials across the community, all coordinated by the CARICOM Secretariat. We have also benefited from the assistance of the World Health Organization and the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, which enabled us to gain access to essential COVID-19 medical supplies, personal protective equipment, PPEs, and testing kits and reagents needed to conduct testing. Countries such as South Korea, Canada, the United Kingdom, Cuba, India, China, the United Arab Emirates, Turkey, and the United States, as well as the European Union and the international financial institutions, also rendered assistance. South Korea's generous assistance, for which we are deeply grateful, has been directed towards strengthening the health sector in member states, supporting CARPHA, and the acquisition of PPEs. The community is highly appreciative of the generosity of all our partners. In the early days of the pandemic, CARICOM member states experienced significant challenges in sourcing test kits, PPEs, and therapeutics. The community designed a common procurement platform with a central logistics center to facilitate distribution of the items. PAHO and the WHO assisted us in procuring those items, and were it not for their intervention, our health situation could have been worse. In that regard, we welcome the COVAX facility, an initiative to guarantee equitable access to safe and effective COVID-19 vaccines. 6 CARICOM member states have been identified for advanced market commitment, a financing instrument to support the procurement of vaccines for low-income countries. The remaining member states have committed to the facility as self-financing countries, and have obtained support from development partners in facilitating the downed payment. However, the quota for our region would only cover 15% of the population. Currently, some of our member states are continuing to report an increase in positive cases in the form of clusters and community spread. Others are reporting very low rates of transmission. Among the preventive measures adopted by our countries has been the closure of borders to limit the importation of cases. Most member states have reopened their borders with protocols and testing procedures in place to minimize the risk of imported cases. The global spread of COVID-19 was propelled by travel, and the curtailment of that activity has acutely affected the Caribbean, which is the world's most tourism and travel-dependent region. In many countries, tourism represents close to 50% of GDP. It is a major source of employment and government revenue and generates more than 60% of foreign exchange earnings. Tourism is also the driver of a host of other related economic activities, such as financial services, food and beverage, transportation, and cultural industries. Although international tourism has restarted in some member states with established health protocols, it is no surprise that the containment measures adopted for the COVID-19 pandemic have had a significant negative impact on the sector. Indeed, the pandemic has had a devastating effect on the overall economy in CARICOM states. CARICOM has been acknowledged as being the worst hit region economically amongst all developing countries. Revenue losses associated with the virus average between 30 to 40%. Overall, most countries are projected to experience double-digit contractions in economic activity in 2020. The International Monetary Fund has forecast an average decline of 13% for the region, but some CARICOM countries will experience a decline as high as 20%. This projection could worsen in light of the reinstatement of lockdown measures in tourism-sourced countries in Europe. Sharply rising expenditures related to the pandemic to provide healthcare and financial support for citizens and businesses, together with plummeting revenues, have resulted in higher fiscal deficits and substantially elevated debt levels. Further, CARICOM states are now faced with a protracted recovery amidst a dismal global economic outlook. The IMF has forecast that the global economy faces a long, uneven, and uncertain ascent back to pre-pandemic levels, and it will be prone to setbacks. This will imperil flows of foreign investment, as well as remittances which support the social safety net in many of our countries. Given the slow pace of the global recovery, the persistence of the pandemic due to the lack of a vaccine, and the prevailing risks globally, the outlook for 2021 and the medium term remains highly uncertain for CARICOM. CARICOM's recovery will be undertaken from a position on which the IMF has concluded that, and I quote, "the sudden stop in tourist arrivals and local lockdowns was equivalent to a cardiac arrest," end quote. Our countries face large financing needs. Given that many countries had low fiscal buffers and elevated debt levels prior to COVID, financing pressures have intensified. All of this is happening while our region continues to face the major existential threat of climate change and rebuilding from the destructive effects of natural disasters. In this challenging economic context, the community's experience in sourcing financing to address the health and economic crises has revealed the insensitivity of traditional financing sources to the peculiar circumstances confronting CARICOM states. As small, middle-income countries, many are locked out of access to concessional financing due to the use of GNI per capita as the main criterion. This is despite their economic vulnerabilities, highly susceptible to external shock, and dependence on external capital flows. In fact, this criterion was also applied to the financing instrument for the COVAX facility through the use of the per capita figures for 2019, without regard to the economic reality of the first 9 months of 2020. It is incomprehensible that the international community persists in using 2019 per capita figures as the basis to determine which countries get access to vaccines on a concessional basis. COVID presents a health, economic, and humanitarian crisis. There is urgent need to change the criteria for access to the COVAX facility and for concessional financing. Recovery from the current challenges of COVID presents an opportunity for CARICOM states to build back better, taking into account the need to also build resilience to the effects of climate change. This will require significant amounts of capital to achieve a successful recovery. Our community has several proposals to mitigate the risks in response to the crisis, as well as provide support to safeguard lives and maintain livelihoods. These include 1. Refinancing COVID-related debt into long-term low-interest bonds, thereby postponing the debt servicing payments into the foreseeable future. 2. Comprehensive debt relief for small, vulnerable, middle-income states like CARICOM. And 3. Designing a variety of resilience financial instruments aimed at mobilizing and providing appropriately priced funding to build economic and climate resilience. CARICOM looks forward to the support of countries such as South Korea to advocate for these issues on its behalf, particularly in fora such as the G20 and the OECD Development Assistance Committee, where decisions with a global impact are taken and our member states do not have a voice. The economic recovery of member states will no doubt depend to quite an extent on external factors. However, building back better using already established CARICOM Single Market and Economy, CSME, presents the best platform for achieving economic and climate resilience, as well as sustainable growth and development. The COVID pandemic and its consequences have demonstrated an urgent need for digital transformation and to build out the CARICOM single ICT space. The community has designed a regional digital development strategy and action plan to drive our progress in this sector. We recognize that there is a significant digital gap which we need to address urgently and for which we will need assistance. ICT application in education, health, commerce, and the conduct of government business is essential going forward. Digital technologies are therefore central in any strategy for an inclusive recovery. What this pandemic has underlined is the critical importance of cooperation in combating such challenges. This forum is an illustration of the importance of working together across borders, pooling knowledge, insights, and experience to help each other to better weather the prevailing storms. I look forward to the outcome of this 2020 high-level forum. I thank you.